Welcome back, everybody. Well, I know it's the dead of winter, so you might not be thinking about Lake George, although those of us that love Lake George are out there walking around on Lake George. There's even some ice fishing going on. As a matter of fact,
There
a lot
is
of ice fishing
a lot of
going
ice
on,
fishing right now.
So we thought it might be really nice to have Dave Wick, who's been here many times, to come in the dead of winter and just give us a little recap on what happened last year with the Lake George Park Commission and maybe what some of the things that we could all look forward to them doing in 2015. So first, welcome back, Dave.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always great to have you here. 2014.
Right.
Pretty big year. I think about the boat inspection program right away.
Yep.
How was it? First year, right?
It was our first year. We had a couple of pilot years just to get the program started, the idea. The whole idea is to take a look at how we can best keep invasive species out of Lake George. They can cause huge problems with recreational opportunities, cost a lot of money to clean them up, so let's keep them out in the first place. So most of the invasive species come to Lake George by boats, so we're taking a look at all the boats before they get into the lake. So the first year of our mandatory boat inspection program was 2014, and it went very, very well.
Yeah, great. You know, I'm pretty close to the town dock up in Hague, which is one of the sites where they do the inspections. And, you know, you might think, oh, everybody's going to complain and whatnot. I asked the guy who was doing the inspections at town dock in Hague. He said, rarely does anybody complain, that they all really understand. And they did quite a thorough job, man. They were looking in the props. They were looking all over the place on these boats.
Yeah, it's the whole idea. It takes about 5 or 7 minutes for an inspection, and if the boat gets inspected and it doesn't meet a clean, drained, and dry standard, then no worries. We have a decontamination unit, which is just a high-powered pressure washer that washes off your boat at no charge, and then off you go into the lake.
And people were saying, you know, how did you supervise that? You got a little sticker, a little tag or something, right? Wasn't that the deal?
Yeah, so what happens, you bring your boat to one of the 6 inspection stations around the lake. They take a look at your boat, and if it passes inspection, you get a little wire zip tie seal that goes between the trailer and your boat. And wherever you want to go to launch, they just clip that seal and off you go into the lake. And on the way back out of the lake, they will reseal you. So if you just come back to Lake George the next time, you're all ready to go. You don't need a new inspection. But if you wanted to go to another water body, you'd have to break that seal. Say you wanted to go to Lake Champlain or elsewhere. And then when you come back, you'll just need a new inspection, another 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. And like I said, the inspector that I spoke to said hardly anyone objected to it. They all realized that it was really for the better good. And when you realize how invasive species are, you got a handle on that, right? And that's the main way they get in the lake.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that they're trailered in.
We did a 2-year study just on what are the biggest, vectors we call them for invasive species to get into the lake. And our research and nationwide, the research comes back that, it's really, trailered boats that are going from water body to water body are bringing invasive species in. And so I think the program that we put together is kind of modeled after Lake Tahoe, which has been very successful. And right now, we're very thankful to the Environmental Protection Fund. Money is coming from New York State. Half of the cost is coming directly from New York State, and the other half is coming from local municipalities and nonprofit organizations that are chipping in, so there's no cost to the boater for the program.
Oh, that's terrific, Dave. Hey, obviously, when you're talking about invasive species and some of the issues that the lake is dealing with, milfoil always comes to the top of the list, right? Or close to the top of the list.
Yeah.
How are we doing with the milfoil eradication stuff?
Milfoil has been in Lake George since 1986, and it's had different levels of money, that's been trying to address the issue. So very thankfully this year, we're going to have more money in the Environmental Protection Fund than we've ever had before, a couple $100,000. And what we have is a milfoil control crew, a private company that we hire that goes out and literally hand picks the milfoil out of the lake. They've come up with a very effective methodology, and they've been doing excellent work in a lot of the bays. The goal is within the next 2 to 3 years to have all of the dense beds of milfoil gone, forever, hopefully in Lake George.
I gave Dave a small example around my dock, Lake George. I see it, I hand harvest it, and over the course of the last 2 summers have really just beaten it.
Right.
It can be done.
It can be done, yeah.
And
if it's not controlled, that's the challenge. If we don't do it for a year, we've had a couple of years where the money's been a little bit lower, and we see that those areas that are kind of affected by milfoil have just exploded.
Yeah,
and we need to control it. Once we get rid of it, it'll be gone. So that's the goal.
Yeah, great. The other thing before we went on camera, Dave and I were talking about things that are coming up this summer and the recreation study. I think it's actually very interesting. Give us just a sort of a view of what the study's about.
Sure. What we want to do is get a better understanding of, what are the use trends of people on Lake George? Where are all the boaters going? How many boats are coming to Lake George? What's the marina activity? So, Lake George, we have both what's actually happening on the lake and then the user's perception of what's going on in the lake. So what this study is going to take a look at, we're working with a consulting firm, the LA Group, and we're going to see where are all the boaters going to and coming from, and all that information is going to be compiled into a nice report, easy to understand and digest by the public, saying this is what's happening on Lake George, and here's what we can do for the future.
I gotcha. Well, you know what, Dave? It all sounds very positive. As anybody who is on the lake, enjoys the lake, goes for a boat ride on the lake, fortunate enough to have a home on the lake, that issues like invasive species and milfoil, everyone talks about it, everyone thinks about it, and you're actually doing something about it, which is, I highly commend you for that and your team, because that's what preserves Lake George as the Queen of American Lakes, right?
Yeah, it does. We have such a great partnership. The Park Commission is like the smallest New York State agency, but we work with Warren County, with the nonprofits, Lake George Association, the Fund for Lake George, all the municipalities. They get it, they understand it. They understand that Lake George is $1 billion regional tourism economy, and people come to Lake George because of its quality. And so our job is to kind of bring some leadership to make sure that we're doing the best we can to keep it that way.
Just to go a quick aside, and then we've got to go. But and I'm sure you've experienced this kind of thing as well. We were up just hiking around the water's edge, and I look up, and a bald eagle flew over our heads at about 30 feet.
Yep.
And I'm telling you something, just, that's what Lake George is. It's above the waterline and below the waterline.
That's right, exactly. It's a beautiful place.
Oh, my God. Dave, thanks for coming in. We'll have you back again over the summer and see what's going on.
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. To see this interview again, head to our website, looktvonline.com.